But joining us now in the studio, my good friend, Major General Janson Boyles. I know him, of course, as Durr, and have known the general for a long time. He is the Adjutant General of Mississippi. Morning, Durr. Thanks so much for coming in.
Morning, Gerard. Thanks for having me, and always thanks for highlighting the National Guard and what we're doing out here.
Fine organization of which we are very proud, and very timely, I think, to have you in this day that most of our nation is off of work, at least, the day after the true Independence Day of July 4th. But over the last month, your team has been out in California, correct? We have.
So tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah.
We've got about 12,500 guardsmen, 2,500 of those are air, 10,000 are Army. Just to put the numbers in perspective, we've had about 4,000 people out in California for the month of June. Every 4 or 5 years, we go out to California and train. We can do more out there than we can just do at Camp Shelby. For example, when we fire a round downrange, we can see the round hit. Out in California, you can't see it at Camp Shelby. So there are a lot of advantages to being out there.
Huh. And so are you there just as Mississippi, or I should say, are there other states that participate at the same time, or do they have separate times?
Good question. So we're one of 5 states that has an armored brigade combat team in the National Guard system.
Okay.
Overall, there are about 28 armored brigade combat teams in the Army. So we have 5 of those.
Wow.
And so, yes, that's based in Tupelo. The headquarters is there. We have about 3,300 men and women in that organization, but it's also made of men and women from Kansas. We have a battalion from Kansas that is part of our brigade. We also had soldiers from California, from North Carolina, from Missouri, from Alabama who deployed with us to California to give us support services.
Gotcha.
So it was a statewide, multi-state adventure.
Do you share best practices, or are those standards kind of already established across all the guards? Is there some, I guess, just communication and learning from other units? Yeah.
So each of those units that I mentioned, they each have their own specialty, so to speak. So the Kansas unit's an infantry unit.
I got you.
Some of the Mississippi units are armor. Logistics, engineering, so they don't necessarily share.
Okay.
But if you're going to fight together, you have to learn to communicate together.
Sure.
And you have to know what each other's doing to get to that ultimate goal of winning the fight.
And is that something that you practice in the maneuvers, just the integration and the orchestration where you guys are working together? Is that part of the exercise?
Yeah, great question. So the way the Army does it is, I mentioned we go out there every 4 to 5 years. So the first year you sort of reconstitute your equipment. The second and third year you're training at the 5 or 10 man level. Then you train at the 20 to 40 man level the next year. Then you train at the company level, which would be 400 people. And then when you go out to California, you're usually at the battalion level, which is a 800,000 man fight per unit.
Yeah.
So you build up to that. You build up to that ultimate game that you play.
Well, it's a pretty big logistical challenge, is it not, to get everybody together, travel that way, and conduct the exercises, and then get everybody back. That's what obviously the military does. What you guys do.
The headlines talk about what we do once we're out in California, about tank-on-tank maneuvers and fighting an Op-4 force. But getting the unit out there, getting the tanks loaded at Camp Shelby is a big deal. Getting the tanks on the train, get them programmed to be out there at the right time, making sure the equipment that goes out there is ready to roll off the train. Mississippi does all that very, very well.
Wow.
And so there's and part of that's training too, because we have to train on how do we deploy if we have to go somewhere, overseas.
Yeah. So and now I know, of course, known you for a long time, and you and I are friends and have been, and played lots of softball and sports and raised kids together and all that sort of stuff. How about your Bulldogs?
How about that, huh?
I had to introduce that into the conversation.
And I'll tell you, Gerard, of course, I'm a Bulldog, and I'm very proud of what they've accomplished, but I'm also very proud, and this is not a politically correct thing to say, but I'm proud that Ole Miss was right there at the cusp. I'm very proud that Southern Mississippi finished in the top 25.
Yeah.
I think you can say Mississippi is a baseball state.
There's no question, and we talked about it. We had our good friend Brian Haydad, our guest last week, day after the big victory and we discussed the same. But it was a proud moment for Mississippi, and I think to be in front of a national audience at that level really showcased, I think, the best of Mississippi, and we should all take, I think, some sense of pride in that. So speaking of logistics, what about this vaccination rollout? Are you guys still involved in that? I think once you got involved, it just seems like that, and certainly my experience was one very positive, very efficient, very professional.
Yeah. And I'm just going to tell you, I say this every chance I get. We had great leadership. The governor really had a vision in place of what he wanted to accomplish. He got Dr. Dobbs and MEMA and the National Guard in a room together, and we all talked about how we would accomplish that. And he turned us loose and let us do our thing. Yeah. And it was very successful. But we're winding it down now.
Okay.
And we have sort of turned off services July 15th.
Okay.
The orders will finish on August 15th. We have to give our soldiers and airmen a lag of time because they've earned benefits along the way, like accumulated leave. You would understand that.
Yeah.
And so on August 15th, we'll be out of the business.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate that because I think it's another situation where Mississippi really shined in our efforts and was a model, I think, for the rest of the country.
And if I can say, so I talk to my peers in other states, Gerard, the same guys who do what I do in other states. They really, truly were looking at us early on saying, what are y'all doing differently? Because we put a number of guardsmen on the problem set right away. And other states were not doing that. And so it's just refreshing to know that they were calling us, asking us, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And why are you successful? And so it's just made you feel good about what we did.
Well, and I also just got to say, from a personal experience, what I noticed is that you got lines of vehicles with people in them that are there to be vaccinated, and it's repetitive, and that's difficult for a human to keep, I guess, a positive attitude and to treat every single, call them customers, if you will.
I agree.
That's really what they are. As if they're the most important, and they're the first ones of the day. And that was my experience. And I know that I was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, hundreds of cars. They'd been through this routine a whole bunch for several hours standing out there. So I just want to call attention to that it's like they practiced that and they understood that and made you feel like you are the most important person in this deal today, right at this point in time.
Yeah, and it's a special group of men and women. I tell you, I went to site just talking to them and all, and I had more than one tell me, sir, this is what I joined the Guard to do.
That's awesome.
I joined the Guard. I certainly love the deployments, and I will do the deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq and Kuwait and all those places, but I joined the Guard to help my community.
That's awesome.
And so many of them told me that, and it was just a really good, positive feeling. And they enjoyed working. I mean, they enjoyed engaging with the people in the community who they knew. I mean, they would know these people in line. Yeah. A big takeaway for me was that about when I was out there walking the lines, like you were talking about, talking to the customers, about every fifth or sixth vehicle had a veteran in it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he was wearing his veteran's hat.
That's awesome.
And he might have his vest on, or she. And they really wanted to come out there and talk to the young men and women in uniform. So
great.
It was a very good experience for everybody.
So good to hear.
Yeah.
Now, last time you and I visited on the air, we were down at the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum at Camp Shelby.
Yeah.
And, of course, I was blown away.
Yeah.
And what a treasure that is, but have learned since that as a result of our broadcast, hundreds have now visited the museum, heard the broadcast, and heard us boasting about it, which was completely justified because it is an incredible place. What do you think about that? I mean, it's a hidden gem in this state.
Well, and I think our challenge is it's not right there on 49 where you can see it, so you miss it that way. We have built a great museum down there, and it's been a work of about 30 years in progress. But folks need to know that all you need to do is show a driver's license to get into the gates of Camp Shelby, Mississippi. We have security guards at the gate, but they want you to enjoy coming to Camp Shelby and see what we have there.
Highly recommend it, folks.
Yeah.
General, thanks so much for coming in, and appreciate all you do, and especially to all the guardsmen and women for their service. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gerard.
You got it.
Happy 4th.
You too, man.
Okay.
Major General Janson Boyles has been our guest here on the JT Show. He's the Adjutant General of Mississippi. We'll take a break right here. We'll be back with more talk. Stay with us.